Why do we love the cinematic look? What makes it so pleasing that we sit there and look at a screen and say, wow, I love that. It's a beautiful creation. The colors look awesome. What inside of us drives that? Well, you're gonna find out today. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. Let's get started. I was gonna actually buy a film camera for this and shoot it in film, get it developed in process, and then show it to you guys why we love the film look. Now right here, I'm just shooting on my digital camera, so that's that. Now the cinematic look, I think it can be seen as a double-edged sword, whatever you want to say. Because on one side, you have the cinema-like qualities are more film-like, and we find those pleasing, like halation, film grain, the sharp contrast in the colors, all those things that are related to film that we desire and we seek to have in our videos just because we find them pleasing. But on the other side, you have people using the term cinematic in their videos, just saying there's a one-click solution, just flip of a switch, and that's how you get a cinematic video just like that, when really, that's not the case. Now first off, the term cinematic more or less means a cinema-like quality. Just whatever is represented from film of past days into what we like to see now. Once we understand the definition and all that goes into it, we can kind of break it down into the steps and filmmakers over the past century used in their process and techniques to create a pleasing image. I was going to go through the whole photographic film process from generating a latent image, developing it, using a fixer agent, creating it, that whole entire process, and the effects that has, the imperfections, but that we learned to love. But I found this video on YouTube that explains it way better than I ever could, and it's more in depth and easier to understand. So I'll link that video up here, and I'll link it in the description down below, and check that out after you're done watching this video. At this point, I'm going to talk about why we learned to love the film look. Maybe not everybody loves the film look, but for me, when I watch a movie, case in point, Lord of the Rings, the color grade on that movie, amazing, and they shot that on film, which I thought was awesome. And I love the color grading aspect of that movie, and I just generally love the process, and the image it gives is pleasing to me. I know for most of us, we grew up, at least in this age, on watching TV shows and movies, and we've learned to love that film look because it's been transferred over from shooting on film to shooting on digital to recreate that film look as well. But it's not just because of the chemical process and the imperfections of it that we love. It's really these people called color timers. So before we had color grading and digital color grading, we had these people called color timers. They would run it through a machine called a color analyzer. Usually either the Kodak color analyzer or there's a Hazeltine color analyzer. Now these are very expensive machines and allowed them to go through the film basically from the beginning to the end of the film. So they would watch the film and take notes as they watched it, and they would only have limited time. So they have to write fast for one and really look and pay attention to what they needed to change. And once they had all that done, they could only change 3 parameters: the red channel, the green channel, and the blue channel. But also this is a film negative, so it would be cyan, magenta, and yellow. They would change these 3 parameters, and these are called printer lights. And these printer lights, they'd be able to add a point of green, subtract a point of green, etc. with red and blue as well. And this would allow them to either change the overall exposure of the image by changing them all at the same time, or change the exposure and the amount of color they wanted in the overall global part of the image in relation to red, green, and blue. Now their tool set was very limited, which I think allowed them to really hone in on their craft and take the time to analyze and see what they wanted to do with the image and not waste time, because nowadays with digital color grading, we have all these tools at our disposal, but it leads to people trying to manipulate images too much or change too many things instead of just keeping it simple and starting from the basics, trying to use basic tools to get what they want out of an image, and trying to use 90 different tools. And for one, confusing yourself, at least confusing me, because the simpler it can be, the better, and the less we have to change or manipulate an image, the better as well. Then you're keeping the original intent and more or less the image intact. There won't be artifacts in the video. Now, I know there's probably a lot of downsides to working in printer points as color timers did, but I think a positive when they worked in their printer points Usually 1 point would equal around 1/12 of an f-stop. But now in film, cinematographers used f-stops for exposure changes in an image. This allowed them to have a scalable language of communication between cinematographers and the color timers. So when a cinematographer would say, yeah, can you lower the exposure of an image half of a stop of light, the color timer would be able to do that no problem. But now when we're using these digital color grading stations of today, you can't exactly equate it to f-stops or exposure mathematically. It's really just more or less doing it by eye in an image and getting pretty close. The less you have to do to an image, the less you have to do in your process to get your desired result, I think the better. We can use all these techniques, tips and tricks in our workflow as cinematographers and filmmakers, but if we keep our process simple and streamlined, it can allow us to get better and better at our process and using our simple tools if we restrict ourselves to learn how to use what we have instead of trying to change everything every so often. This allows you to really think about what you want to do with your image, what you want to create when doing your cinematography in your films. If you keep yourself within that box of that limited set of tools, it can really allow you to learn how to use your tools to adapt to different situations very well. If we limit our tool set to just a couple tools that are simple and do 90% of our color grading in those tools, and then the extra tools that are super helpful and useful, but only in certain situations to get the rest 10% of the way there, I think it'll allow us to streamline our process so much faster using simple tools, but also getting a desirable result by honing your craft and really learning your tool set and what you want to get out of the image and how you can do that. It's one of the things I hope we can take away from today is using a limited set of tools, but also generating what we see as a pleasing image that's more or less cinematic, learned from people in the past. All right, that wraps it up. And this is why the cinematic look and the corruption of what it is and what we have to do, always trying to chase the next trend, is really ruining your creativity. I know it's ruined mine a time or two before, comparing myself to other filmmakers on YouTube and how they've got so far, got so many subscribers and stuff like that. But really it's work on you and your film process and your craft and really honing it in to who you are in your aesthetic style. All right, that about wraps up this video. If you liked the video, hit the like button and hit the subscribe button and hit that bell notification to become notified of our next video when we post it. Also follow our social medias. We have Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, of course, where you're watching this. And we started a podcast. The link for that will be in the description. If you want a more in-depth study of filmmaking and color grading and the techniques used, we'll also be answering questions like that on the podcast. Until then, see you next time. Peace. I guess note to self, should have brought the field recorder so I could hear myself talk, because I didn't think the waves were going to be this loud, but